recording. Very good.
That's officially real. Yeah, as far as I know.
When are we filming the video?
Tuesday.
Really?
Sam didn't tell you?
Yeah, it's filming today.
Oh, not today. It's Tuesday.
This Sunday, next Sunday. I said this Sunday works for the next Sunday. To go to.
No, I said you're pretty flexible or something.
Yeah, I said I'm available.
I think you're on Tuesday. I guess he didn't confirm with you.
Sean, who are you speaking about?
This is very exciting.
Well, which one? Maybe two.
Because I have to drop in actually. It's 10 and 8, I don't know.
I think he has you at night. I don't think he's been asking from
Sure.
He didn't confirm with you, but I think he.
No, you didn't ask me anything.
What did you 9 p.m.?
Yeah, I can. Sure, you have during the day?
I have to start talking to see if we can move. Yeah, so we can move people.
How does it work? You come here to do it?
Yeah.
How long is it?
10, 15 minutes.
You use what, about 1 minute of it?
Probably not even.
30 seconds?
Probably, maybe. We love it and I love it. Oh, so I need this right next to me. Okay.
This one's all about
Of course. So I mean, it'll take 10 minutes for all that matters. Social conversation. We were standing up here. Standing up here.
No, show him, take his seat.
Absolutely.
Right, everybody take his seat.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, I have your number.
I had a Rabbi that I had in 6th grade that whenever any of us was talking during davening or would come late, he would remind us that there's room for all of us in Gehenna, and that the fire in Gehenna is very, very hot. It made an impression on us as kids. But he never told us there's a Gehenna of Shelley, of snow. And there is such a thing in this farm. Which of course in life it means that there are people who suffer from the Gehenna of Aish, from uncontrollable fire, passion, desire, and so on. And there's another kind of a Gehenna of Shelley, of snow and of ice. A person who suffers from coldness, because he can't express his own inner feelings or has not been able to receive warmth from others, a combination of both. So that particular klipa is the klipa of Amalek, which is a klipa of Asher Korcha, coldness, kriyus, of coldness. So whatever we're experiencing now, because this is pretty extreme, whatever we're experiencing is just a emotional. We have no control at all over any of this. The Bansham fears the Welt. Everybody should be warm and safe. But over the coldness, we have. Over the klipa of Amalek, we have the ability to fight that klipa. So Yosef is the sitna shel Amalek shel Esav. So this is what we're learning. Kodesh of Yosef HaTzadik. So Baruch Hashem, we're beginning the actual body of the Sefer on page Yud Zayin, Perak Rishon, B'chol Drechecha De'eyu, Yesod HaChasidus. Chol Drachecha De'eyu Yisoid HaChasidus. Yadua Sha'Sefer HaChasidus HaRishon Shebol L'Tfus HaYosef Toldos Yaakov Yosef. And there's a whole history surrounding that. And of course, there was, tremendous opposition to the Sefer. There were public burnings of the Sefer, Toldos Yaakov Yosef, which is, besides the chidushim of that tzaddik himself, expounding on the teachings of the ULiShamra Kodesh, it is the oitzer that we have, the greatest, most authentic, and largest oitzer of the teachings of the ULiShamra Kodesh. But the ULiShamra did not, as you know, did not write any svarim. So we're depending upon the Toldos Yaakov Yosef, the Gemach Nefraim, and so on. The Toldos is the first Sefer, the first Chassidish Sefer that was printed. But what's less known, what's less known is that it was not long after that Am Yisrael was zeicher for the Sefer Magid Dvarav Yaakov, which is Medivrei Terosa Shel Magid HaGadol Mimezvich Zeicher Tzaddik V'Kosh L'Vracha. Also, Mezritch Magid did not write Svarim. To this day, there's work that's being done just the past few years. Some Valdigas from have come out, again, gathering together the teachings of the Mezritch Magid from the Talmidim. And the earliest one is Magid Dvarav Yaakov. Medivrei Terosa, the Torahs of the Mezritch Magid. A lot of what we're going to be learning, of course, is the ULiShamra Kodesh, but the Mezritch Magid as well. Sefer Nerach v'hu v'letfus ha'idei Talmidu ha'gadol shel ha'Magid, Rav HaKodesh Rabbi Shlomo Lutzkus, Zech Tzar HaKodesh L'Vracha. Heyosh shetnuas ha'chasidus ha'isa az b'reishisa. So since at that time the Chassidish, the Tnuas, the movement, the Chassidish movement, the movement of Chassidus was at the beginning. Pochas me'eser shonim achrei p'tiras ha'Magid schus yeleinu. It was less than 10 years after the Mezritch Magid was nifter. There was a Hakdama that was written to this collection of the teachings of the Mezritch Magid. And this introduction sort of is trying to encapsulate what is the chiddush of this new movement of Chassidus. Avinoam Magid HaGadol, V'ala Baal Shem Tov V'Talmidav. B'Hakdama Hazos, V'nos and Skira al Shtalshel Saterim Moshe Rabbeinu. In the Hakdama of Rabbi Shlomo Lutzker, we have sort of the Histalshelus, the history, the Histalshelus of Torah itself, from Moshe Rabbeinu, Derech HaNeviim, Anshe Knesset Gdolah, Tanoim, V'Amroim, Go'enim, Go'eni Hazman, V'Hemshech U'Medaber al Shalshelas, Chachmas HaKabbalah, and the Shalshelas and the Histalshelus of Kabbalah, which we're learning a lot about in the Chassidish Shiur, from the Hakdama of Rabbi Gershon Henoch to the Beis Yaakov on Friday morning. Rashbi, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Sefer Zor, Haramak, Barizal, Bisham Mamshech L'Darim. And then he continues on with what was revealed at this time, meaning at the time of the Baal Shem and the Mezritch Magid. And he writes the following: V'hinei b'avnesen harabim, Rabu k'may Rabu hadaris mata v'nismatu halavavis. The level of the generations has descended, mata v'nismatu halavavis, and the hearts have been diminished. V'kemat nishkach chachma, to the point that this chachma of Kabbalah was almost completely forgotten. Rak eitzel ma'at mi'ze'er yichidei school, with the exception of a very, very few individuals that were still learning this chachma of Kabbalah. V'gam mehem she'osu b'tzom divrei harizal, v'ak dvarim kipshuta. And even those few who were learning Kabbalah, they were studying the teachings of the Arizal, kipshuta, meaning to try to just translate and to understand the pshat of what the Arizal was saying. But as far as how to apply these exalted, sublime, transcendent teachings of what's going on in the Olamas, how to actually translate it to something in this world and how we're supposed to live, that was not that had not yet taken place. Adash bechemus Hashem aleinu heya or Yisrael. Told Hashem, because of Hashem's love, the light of Yisrael. Allahu harav eloki hakadosh meinu Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov v'talmidav hakadoshim Moshe nisavku ba'ofer aglav lishtos b'samez dvar till the appearance of the light of Baal Shem Tov and his students. Divrei Elokim Chaim. Divrei Elokim Chaim. The words of the living God. Divrei Elokim Chaim, which is what Chassidus is called. Divrei Elokim Chaim. Living because it's not just a way of how Hashem created the world, but it's a way of living in this world, a way of life. Ki hu gila makar yakar tiferes chachma zu. Hashem HaKadosh revealed the makar of this chachma. Kol kaitz v'kaitz tili tilim shel halichas olam ha'elyon v'sachdusa b'olam ha'tachton. Al kol kaitz v'kaitz, every single dot, every single nakuda of this chachma of Kabbalah, the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh revealed mountains and mountains, and his students, mountains of not of halachas, but halichas olam, of ways of how to live in this world. Halichas olam ha'elyon v'sachdusa b'olam ha'tachton. That's all Chassidus, of how to connect the olam ha'elyon, the higher world, with the olam ha'tachton, with this lower world. B'chol tnua, every single movement in life, not just every thought, every word, every action, every tnua. V'hiluch v'dibur v'uvda. Every step, every word, everything that we do, there should be a connection between the elyon and the tachton, above and below. Until the Baal Shem HaKadosh, the teachings of Kabbalah were above. They were hovering over this world, and there were great, great, great people who knew how to climb some mysterious ladder and were able to pick some of the fruits that were higher than this world. Rabbi Shimon Yochai, what he left, and Arizal. But as far as simple, regular Jews being able to live their lives according to these teachings of Rabbi Shimon and Arizal, that was something that was not yet here. Kimamar Mizal al Chanoch Shahaya Teifrim in Olam, and Shlomo brings, and Chazal tell us that Chanoch from Sefer Bereshis, from Parshas Bereshis, that Chanoch Haya Teifrim in Olam, he was a shoemaker. Haya Teifrim in Olam, he was sewing shoes. Al Kol Tfira, and with every single stitch. With every single stitch in the shoe, he would say, L'shem yichud kutshabichu u'shchinte, to unite the higher world and the lower world. With every stitch. Now there's a lot written about what that means. What is the yichud of Chanoch? What is that yichud making a pair of shoes? Kashiyovo biyur b'fnim zeh Sefer, and Rabbi Shlomo Luska says what you're going to see in this Sefer. One of the things you're going to see, and really is the theme of not just the Sefer Magid Rabbi Yaakov from the Torah Mesilat Magid, but it's the theme of all of Chassidus. Yimis Hashem, kashahabe midvar b'kdoshim huvu beisa Yosef b'svar masher chubru yachtav hem divrei kodesh shel kvod harav again kadishu aprishim reinu Rabbi Yaakov Yosef HaKayin. A neighbor yard at that time, the Told Yaakov was still alive, and his Torahs that he brings to the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh and the Torahs of Mesilat Magid are all revolving around this one revelation of Chazal that Chanoch would say l'shem yichud when he was sewing the sandals, the shoes. In other words, there was something very, very mundane, something very ordinary that was taking place. A hard-working shoemaker was on his craft. Now, does it literally mean that he was saying l'shem yichud kutshabichu u'shchinte? So, if you look in Michtam Eliyahu, Rav Dessler, as you know, was was in our generation from the greatest Bali Musa, from the greatest, biggest Bali Musa, who was also steeped in the learning of Chassidus. But Rav Dessler wrote from Rabbi Salante also this Chazal that Chanoch would say L'Shem Yichu Kutshu B'Yichu Shchinte when he was fixing a pair of shoes. Now, if you or I were Bali Musa, not Kabbalists, but Bali Musa, what would you say is the pshat? What would a Bal Musa say is the pshat in the L'Shem Yichu Kutshu B'Yichu Shchinte of Chanoch when he was making a pair of shoes? What would you, if you were Bal Musa, you wanted to teach your Talmidim what this Chazal, what does it mean? Obviously, the Bal Musa would not be fond of the thought of an honest person working on a pair of shoes, concentrating on Kabbalistic incantations. So what Rav Dessler brings down a Torah from Rabbi Salante, which is a very Hasidic Torah, because that we'll talk about more. We'll maybe see Rav Dessler inside. What Rav Dessler said is that the meaning of the L'Shem Yichud brings from Rabbi Salante. The meaning of L'Shem Yichud over here is that when Chanoch was fixing shoes, or he was making a pair of shoes, he would have in mind it should be comfortable and strong. For the person who will buy these shoes, they should be comfortable and strong. And Rabbi Salante said that is the meaning of this Chazal. But it says that he said L'Shem Yichud Kutshu B'Yichu Shchinte. It says actually he was Miyached Yichudim. It doesn't say he said the words L'Shem Yichud. It says he was Miyached Yichudim. So what's the pshat? That certainly is not far at all from what we're going to be learning, what Rabbi Salante said. That he had in mind that the shoe should be a good shoe. It should be comfortable, it should be strong. How is that a yichud? Why is that a yichud? When you think of the word yichud, you think of the Rashash, you think of Kabbalah, you think of Shemus of Hashem, Kutshu B'Yichu, Shchinte, Yud Kei Vav Kei, Aleph Dal Nun Yud. So let's learn a little bit more. Since none of you want to offer your own opinion, so we'll go a little bit further and we'll see. Does anybody? No? What does that mean? How is that a yichud? I mean, that's what Rabbi Salante said. The shoe should be comfortable. Not only that, but Rabbi Salante said it would be against halacha for the shoemaker to be thinking about shemus while he's fixing the shoe. It would be against halacha. It would be dishonest, because the shoemaker should be focused on what he's doing. And if you're thinking of shemus of Hashem, the likelihood is that you're going to have some crooked stitches, and it's not going to be such a gewaldige pair of shoes. So how is this a yichud?
Right now, he's doing what Hashem wants him to be doing. Same way, just the time to daven, the time to work, time to eat.
He's doing the Ratzon Hashem at this moment, and being in that place of doing what he's supposed to do is a yichud.
Acknowledgement of bitachon and hishtadlus.
What?
An acknowledgement of bitachon and hishtadlus at the same time.
I think this is what Shalom is saying, the same thing, right? That recognition, the realization that the Borei Olam is telling me that I have to pay for my kids' tuition, on how big the yeshiva was back then, but I have to take care of my family. I have to eat, and this is like Shalom was saying right now. This is the Ratzon Hashem. This is the Ratzon Hashem that I make a pair of shoes, and being entirely focused on my responsibilities in that world of ishtadlus, and doing what I'm responsible to do at this moment, as per what I was talking about yesterday morning. That is a yichud. Now, does that mean that Chanoch had special kavanas, or does it mean that the physical act itself? See, here we're going to be learning the teachings of the Baal Shem and the Mezritch Magid. Every now and then, we'll also learn a little bit from Rav Kook. Because Rav Kook sort of builds upon this Torah in his own unique way, and he does add a certain side of Chiddush, a side of Chiddush. But Shalom is right. On the most basic level, doing what Hashem wants you to do at that moment itself is a yichud of the higher world and the lower world. So let's learn a little bit more. Say Ulumad, page Yudches. Say Ulumad, Dvar Beket Azeh. So let's go, let's learn. Sheka'omer, Yotzim B'kul Masu Shel Ech Megdal Talmidei HaMagid. The words that we just read came out from the pen of one of the greatest students of the Mezritch Magid, Rabbi Shlomo Lalutzker, Asher Yitzchak Mayim Al Yado, who never left the Mezritch Magid side. V'Magid Ba'asmo, Mili Es Yado, L'Hafitz Es Or Terasa, Al Pnei Tevel. And as the Mezritch Magid, began sending his students out to be Mekayim, what the Baal Shem HaKadosh was told, and the Mezritch Magid began sending the Talmidim out. Reish is Daven. So we have this great tzaddik who never left the side of the Mezritch Magid, who wanted to, in his introduction, to summarize all Teres Baal Shem in one sentence, because the Hagdama, as you know, the Hagdama of the Sefer is the Neshama. So this is the Neshama of the Baal Shem Tov. This is the Neshama of Chassidus. Is this funny Chazal, this interesting Chazal about the old ancient shoemaker at the beginning of time. So he begins by saying, Rabbi Shlomo Lusker says that what the Baal Shem Tov revealed was this unity of the higher world and the lower world, bringing this about, b'chol tnua, in every movement that we make, v'hiluch, in every step that we take in life, v'dibra, in every word that we speak, v'uvda, in everything that we do. B'safa shalana Baal Shem Tov gila shakal kaitz min ha'olam hazeh, in our own language, the Baal Shem Tov taught that every single kaitz, which literally means, of course, a thorn, but it means a point, every little, tiny little thing in this world, Vivate or Eloki Elyon Mesiyam, is somehow an expression of something in the higher world, an or Eloki. V'avodas Hashem shel ha'adam hilagalus is the or Eloki hazeh. And our avoda in this world is to reveal that or Eloki, which Chanukah was doing by trying to make a pair of comfortable shoes. And that's the Ratzon Hashem, that the person who wears these shoes should have nachas, should be comfortable. Aprat Hasheni Sharoi Losim Leif, Miad Behemshach Lezemevis HaMedrash, Oimer Shechanach Sheisar L'Dargis Malach Mem Testes. We know that Chanach, Chazal tell us, didn't die in a normal way, but like Elionov, he ascended and became a Malach. This Malach Chatron Mem Testes, who's from the Av Bezdin and Shemaim of all the Malachim. He's the head. He's the CEO of all the. Is that the CEO, CFO? I don't know. CEO? Is there, right? They're both. I don't know. But the CEO of all the Malachim is Chanoch, and that this amazing person who left the world in such a way to become a Malach, that this person, his parnosa was Obed Kesandler, that he was a shoemaker. But every time he would put the needle into the shoe, into the leather, he would say, or he would have a thought that I am putting the needle in l'shem Hashem. And this was his avodas Hashem. That somehow through this he was bringing about a yichud of the Elyon and the Tachton, above and below. Kfisha Rava Kodesh Milutz saying, Medrash Zemuva Habe Pamim B'Sefer Bala Toldos Yaakov Yosef B'Shem Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh. The Toldos brings this Medrash about Chanach many times in the name of the Baal Shem HaKadosh. So Aleph, the most basic level, on the most basic level, in the introduction to the Mizritch Maggid's Torah, and the fact that the Talmud brings this all the time for the Baal Shem, and how this was something Baal Shem Tov would come back to very often, on the most basic level, it's telling a Baal Parnasa that there's something significant about his life that he never knew about. It's telling the shoemaker, not just the shoemaker, obviously means the shoemaker and the butcher and the rest of the chevra, who until now, every moment of their life doing those things was a distraction of what they were supposed to be doing, was somehow a huge b'diavad in their lives, and so on and so forth. All of a sudden, the sandal maker is Oved Hashem. Not just that he's an Oved Hashem when he goes to shul, but he's already or when he goes to Bais Medrash, he's an Oved Hashem when he's making a pair of sandals. Like the story one of my favorite stories that I've mentioned over the years a number of times, when Rabbi Levine Zeches Havakol Shavach, when Rabbi was walking through Yerushalayim, and he was in the old city. Yes, I think they said he was walking over there, and there was a wonderful Svardish Yid that was cleaning. He had a little room and he was cleaning the street. And when he saw Rabbi, he was very embarrassed because he knew Rabbi, I guess, wherever, and Rabbi caught him doing this, sweeping the street, and he put his broom behind his back, and he said, "Boker Tov Rabbeinu, Boker Tov Rabbeinu," and Rabbi Levine said to him, he knew by his name, whatever his name was. Rabbi said to him, whatever Yaakov, he said, "I'm so makana you, I'm so jealous of you." And it was obvious that he was a street cleaner. And Rabbi said, "I'm so jealous of you." And this person couldn't. He said, "Jealous of me." He says, "Rabbi, every single minute you're teaching Torah and doing Chesed and all these things, and I'm in the all day long." He said, "Lichluch, lichluch, lichluch." That's my whole life. Is what? Dirt. I'm in the dirt. My whole life, I'm in the dirt. And Rabbi told him, "Ashrecha, Ashrecha, Makaniyu. Yerushalayim is Klilas Yofid. Yerushalayim is the crown of Hashem's head, is the most beautiful city in Hashem's world, and He wants Hashem's world to be so beautiful and to be clean. Ashrecha, Ashrecha, that you're doing this malacha of making Yerushalayim beautiful." And it said in the Sefer where I read this, I think it was the biography of the Aish Tzaddik, the Rabbi. I think it said that he would, for the rest of his life, that this street cleaner would walk around holding his broom like it was a scepter of a king. Like he would walk around holding his broom. That it was a different piece of wood than it was before. It's so much deeper than that, though. What Rabbi was telling him. But that's Aleph. Aleph is that that one's Maaseh HaParnasa, that work, whether it's a pair of shoes or it's sweeping the street, the work itself is a Maaseh Avodas Hashem. That was to us. Why not? That was revolutionary. Because Reb Shlomo Lutzker could have brought any of the teachings of the Mizritch Maggid of the Baal Shem Tov that would have impressed people much more than this. Some deep teaching in Kabbalah and Chassidus he could have brought as an example of a little bit of a taste of what you're going to be tasting in the Sefer. I want to give you a little bit of a sample, but instead he brings this Chazal of the shoemaker somehow saying L'Shem Yichud. And the reason he does that is because this is the Hayesodis of all of Chassidus, and all the Baal Shem Tov HaKodesh was sent to the world to teach. Of Nisarva Kishbaruch Liyos Leidir B'Tachtan, Hashem Yisbarach, the Shechina is in the pair of shoes, and the needle. The Shechina is here. And that this takes Shegisha Hazos Tovsa, this Malcolm HaMerkazi, the center place that this took in the whole mission of the Baal Shem Tov, in the whole Torah of the Baal Shem Tov Talmidah. Prat Nosef Shoreli Laskia, another thing it's important to remember. Harava Kodesh Milutz Madgish as Achidish Shel Torah Baal Shem Tov L'umas Chachmas HaKabbalah. What's interesting and important is that Rabbi Shlomo Lutzker is telling us the Hishtalshlus from Moshe Rabbeinu and then through Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and Arizal, and the next phase of Pnimius HaTorah, the next phase of Kabbalah is what? The shoemaker. Or what's the prime example of what is happening in the final stage of Gilui HaKabbalah is the shoemaker and the L'Shem Yuchad with the sandals, with the shoes, as being the dugma of what is the next phase, the next stage of the Shtalshlus of Torah's Moshe, of Moshe Rabbeinu's Torah, of what? Of what we learned yesterday, of Maimon HaSinai. Of what we learned yesterday, what we're going in Pashas Mishpatim comes back at the end. And it's the whole lineage at the end of Pashas Mishpatim, where the blood was divided half and half, and we learned Pashas Shkolim, Machzah Shekel. What's the whole lineage of Machzah Shekel? Anybody learn from the Mezritcher Maggid, that Mezritcher Maggid knows the Indian of Machzah Shekel, and the Chatzoitzvus is Chatzitzuras. Machzah Shekel means that in every single thing that we do in this world, even with a coin, we're joining the higher world and the lower world. That's why it's a half shekel. Because the world creation was divided in half. And there's the Olam Ha'on and there's the Olam Ha'tachton. And the whole Yesod of Chassidus is joining together those two halves. And that's the Indian of all this from. That's what Machzah Shekel is. That's the whole Indian of Pashas Shkolim. And Pashas Shkolim, of course, is Hagdama to Purim. Hashem, we're going to be entering into Mishnichtas Adar, Purim. And the whole Indian of Purim is that everything takes place on the stage of this world. On the stage of this world, Hashem's name is not mentioned in the Megillah. The whole Indian of Purim is that we don't see any Nisan, not like Hanukkah, like the Bnei Yisrael, where you hold the dreidel from above, but on Purim we take the grager from below. And taking the grager from below, no, they don't use gragers anymore. When I was a kid, we still use gragers. I don't even know if the grager macher makes a living anymore. Because that's like, we used to use gragers. Ernie, you remember? Just regular gragers. They cost like a dime. That was a deluxe grager. It had like pictures of Mordechai and Esther on it. But now they don't use a grager anymore. I remember the first time that I saw that the grager was no longer accepted. When I was in Eretz Yisrael in Yeshiva, at the end of high school, so there was a guy that put a portable stereo into the Beis Medrash, and when it came to hum and he turned it on, and went like some crazy niggin came on. But until that time, we all used gragers. And my father had a box. He had a special box with Hanukkah stuff, and he had a little Purim box, and he had, for my sister and for myself, he had these gragers. And the Indian of the grager is that every single motion of this world is making a tumult in the higher world. In other words, Chanukah is a nace that we saw that there's something that was miraculous, that was supernatural, where the higher world, that higher half is making itself known in the lower half. But the Indian of Purim is just the opposite. The noise that we're making is from here, that's being heard in Shemayim. And the whole Indian of Machzah Shekel is as the Hachana. The Purim means that in a coin. And it says that Moshe didn't know what's the Machzah Shekel. And Hashem took what you remember under the Kisya Koven. What did he take out? Mabeya Shel Aish, a fiery coin. And when you look in the Chassidus from this Indian of the fiery coin, which in Kabbalah is a very big Indian. First of all, what's the Kisya Koven in Kabbalah? And what's a Matbeya in Kabbalah? And what's Aish in Kabbalah? But in the Chassidus it means to tell the person who makes an honest living, and he remembers that there's a Baruch Shalom that gave him that responsibility to make an honest living, and every now and then try to think that you're an Eved Hashem while you're doing your work, you should know that coin that you're putting into the cash register, I mean, that's before credit cards, that coin that you're putting into the cash register, you know what it is? It's a Mabei Shel Aish. It's a fiery coin. And you know where it comes from? It comes from the Tachas Kisya Koven. All the Swarm, that's what it talks about. Mabei Shel Aish. A fiery coin. A coin that's on fire is a coin, a simple coin that you put into the pushka. That's called the Matbeya Shel Aish. And even the word Matbeya, which means a coin, has what word in it? Teva. Which means something of this world. Teva. Matbeya Shel Aish. So, there's a reason why Reb Shlomo Lusker took this sampling to give us a taste of what's coming up in the Sefer. That he gave us this medrash about Chanoch and the shoes, because that medrash is the perfect example of that final stop of the Chachmas HaKavod of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, of Moshe Rabbeinu, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and that result in this physical world, which is the Or of the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, which is the Or Shal Mashiach. It's the time of Omolar's Deis Hashem. Kamaim Liyamachas. Hashem is where the Shechina is here with us in this world. And how he says, Chachmas HaKavod Melamedes Rak Al Devar Milyonim. The Arizal was talking about, Rabbi Shimon, the Arizal was talking about things higher than this world. V'lo Torah Baal Shem Tov Melamedes Keitzad Or HaOlam HaElyonim Mezgala Kan B'Olam Shalom. The whole Torah of the Baal Shem, and this is the final stage we're in now, this of the Shtalshlus of Pnimius HaTorah, which is to reveal how Or HaOlam HaElyonim, that the light of the higher world, Mizgala Kan B'Olam Shalom, must be revealed here in our lives, in this lower world. Kol HaChidushim, the Torah Baal Shem Tov, all of the Chidushim in the Torah Baal Shem, Mulganim b'Mekaros Kedumim, as we said many times over the years, the Baal Shem Tov didn't create something. Everything has its sources in Chazal, in Torah B'Chsav, in Torah Baal Peh. Everything is there. The Ikar Chidush Etzlo Hu Eichshu Ha'itzias Hadvarim HaTmunim B'Svarim HaKedumim, the Kidmas Habama. The Ikar Chidush the Baal Shem HaKadosh is how he took these medrashim, these comments that were tucked away in Chazals and in Rashis and so on, in other places, and how he took them from being somewhere like sort of on the side, in the back somewhere, and he brought them Kidmas Habama in center stage. They were always there, but they weren't really noticed. Ve'ikar sheli made as Talmid of Eich Efshel Lichios L'Maiseh Marayonos and his government Halol. And he taught his students, and his students continued to teach their students until this day, how to live L'Maiseh in Harayonos and his government Halol with these exalted ideas. Kama Dvarim She'ad Baal Shem Tov Hayu Ksuvim B'Sfarim Nebchul Dvarim She'nichtavu B'Sfarim Chaim Anashim. Many things that were only found written in Sefer until the Baal Shem Tov then became transcribed in the lives of people themselves. In the lives of people themselves. Not just in some ancient book that a few Kabbalists are studying, but in how people live, and how people actually live. And that's why the Medrash of Chanoch making the shoes was so fun to the Gedolei HaChasidus, that they loved that Chazal so much. Hadvarim amurim gam besugi shalanu. The Sefer had told us, "Muva harbe pam Baal Shem Tov bones hamahalach shabachol drechach de'eyu al yisod hamedrash hakodem hanal." So throughout the Toldos Yaakov Yosef, he writes how the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh built the entire skyscraper of Chassidus from this yesod of the Medrash of Chanoch making the shoes. So here he went from being what seemed to be a simple shoemaker, and from all people in Tanakh, we find that Chanoch Davke somehow became a malach, whatever that means. That he was transformed into a malach, and not just a malach, but like the Rosh of all the malachim. Shiur Yasandler. I'm saying that the revolutionary message that was brought to the Hamayna Am was that you, the shoemaker, and the guy that's sweeping in Yerushalayim, you could also be a malach. You could also be a malach. Tofim and Olam, somebody that's making shoes. Now that's the thing. He didn't say l'shem yuchud. He didn't say the words l'shem yuchud kutshubichu. That formulation was only later on. He didn't say the words l'shem yuchud kutshubichu shchinte. It's that the act itself of making a comfortable pair of shoes and being focused on that, and that I'm right now doing what Hashem wants me to do, that itself is a yichud kutshubichu shchinte. To bring a consciousness and awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu into the act, the simple act of fixing a pair of shoes. I call tfira with every stitch. Dugman Navi Drush Cotton, the Sefer Tzofnas Paneach. So here's another example from the writings of the Toldos Yaakov Yosef. Another one of his from is the Tzofnas Paneach in Pashas Vayakov. There, the Toldos writes the following, page Yutes. I heard from my Rabbi, meaning from the Baal Shem Tov. Shalom El says, whatever you have, whatever you find with your hand, whatever you have the strength to do it. And do it fully. Do it in the right way. So on this pasuk, the Baal Shem Tov HaKodesh would bring the chazal of Chanoch making the shoes, and then with every stitch, he was miyached kutshubichu shchinte. Ubezem akasha ma'aseh hagashmi shel olam hatachtay, and with this intention of this yichud, again, not a kabbalistic, deep, mysterious kabbalistic thought, but with a simple thought. What was taking place with every single stitch was that the gashmi of the olam hatachtay was being sewn together. So he wasn't only sewing together the shoe, the leather of the shoe. He was sewing together the higher world and the lower world. Aidei machshava shehi b'koichacha. With this machshava, that with your physical human koach, with your physical human strength, and by making these shoes b'koichacha, like Rabbi Yisrael said, making a good pair of shoes, and doing your work in an honest and ehrlich way, that b'koichacha you should know that you're not just stitching together a piece of leather, two pieces of leather, but you're stitching together the higher world and the lower world. Al ruchni olam ha'elyon, the olam ha'gashmi, but the olam ha'ruchni. It says in the pasuk b'chol drachecha de'ehu. I mentioned this last week, and de'ehu is da. Now the name das, of course, means itself, joining together. Das means joining together. Chacham and Bina. Das means sewing together. So the word b'chol drachecha in all of your ways, in everything in your life, da'ehu. Da is making a yichud between Hey and Vav. Hey, of course, is Malchus. Vav is Tiferes, which means Kutshubichu Shchinte. Hey is the Shechina. Vav is Tiferes, which is Kutshubichu, from Hashem's name. Vav and Hey. So, B'chol Drachecha, in everything that you do in life, our tachlis of being in this world is B'chol Drachecha, Da, bring about this yichud, das means to join together. Hey and Vav. Malchus with Tiferes. Meaning, Malchus is the Shechina, Malchus is Shchinte, and the Vav is Tiferes, which is Lahaya, Sirius, Kutshubichu. Da, liyachid Hey im Vav, Kutshubichu, Ushchinte. So the Jewish HaKotan has with this little teaching, just a sentence or two. Yesh shlosha markivim. This Torah has three components. Abal Shem Tov mefarish es hapasah b'kehelas kodesh etimsa yodkel asos b'kechacha asay. Shepakol ma'aseh shodem oiseh b'yodav, that whatever you do with your hands, whatever your work is, whether you do with your hands or with your words or with your thoughts, whatever your malacha is, lo mishana eza ma'aseh shu. Doesn't make a difference whether it's sweeping or shoemaking. Lo maspik shu oises a maise. It's not enough just to do the maise. Now, bekor shelo means with focus and intent, but also, koach, as you know, the word chochma is koach ma. Hainu b'chochma shelo, shekoach merames l'chochma. The word koach is found in the word chochma, which means koach ma. Ma is the word of tikkun. It's the Indian of the Shechina. B'koach ma. Chochma is the highest sphere of chochma. Klomar kol ma'aser sheyotzim min ha'adam hu tzarich la'asos osay b'zbanu sheyesh kan mashu eloki. The simple thought that there's something here that I'm engaged in right now with this shu, that's elokus. Now we're going to see more in the writings of Rav Kook. Rav Kook was, and this is a little bit more aligned with what we were learning from Yisrael Salanta. Rav Kook said, even if you don't actually have that thought in mind right now, but you're a Shemitah Torah mitzvahs, and you daven 3 times a day. So it's an umdin de muchach that what you're doing is to be an Eved Hashem. And even if you don't have that active thought or proactive thought that I'm doing this as an act of Yichud Hashem, but just the very fact that as someone who's Shem mitzvahs and who lives a life of B'chol Drachecha De'eyu, the very act itself is elevated to something much higher. Now this, let's go a couple hundred years ahead in the future from the Baal Shem Tov and the Mezritch Magid to Rav Kook. And Rav Kook was saying this over and over to guess who? The Chalutzim, secular Jews who were trying to clean out swamps in Eretz Yisrael, many of whom had left Yiddishkeit. Almost all of whom were raised in from homes, and many of whom had left Yiddishkeit. And Rav Kook came to them with a Besura Taiva also, to tell them, you think you're running away from Kodesh Baruch Hu, you should know that every single time you put the shovel into the ground, and they could be screaming, we don't believe, no, we're not doing that. And Rav Kook would smile and say, that's exactly what you're doing, Shkaya. You are doing it. Well, I don't want to do it. You're doing it. It's unbelievable. That Besura Toiva of the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, how it continued on through Rav Kook in such a way. Sheyesh kan mashu eloki. And to a soldier who swears up and down from the highest tattoo to his lowest tattoo that he doesn't put on film, he doesn't make a bracha, he'll never make a bracha, he doesn't fast on Yom Kippur, and we're telling him every single second that you're spending walking and holding that rifle, and especially if you actually use it in a good way, every step that you're taking, every bullet, but I'm not thinking about that. My grandfather was a big mekubal, but I'm a Chal Shabbos. It's a Maise Eloki mamish, and when that is lost, it's terrible. But when you have that and you realize that and you live that, yesh kamashu Eloki. There's something here. There's Eloki. What do you think when David Melech was taking a shot? I don't mean in basketball. When he was taking a shot with a bow and arrow, what was he thinking? He was saying to his friend, "No, you think I'm good, no?" David Melech was saying, "L'shem yichu kudshabu l'shem day." Boom. Nachaplishti. Between the eyes. The tatofas beni necha. Right there by Goliath, a rock. Boom. It was a yichud. Those the five Avinoam, Chamishichum Torah. If you look at the Chazals that over there in the story, what would happen with David Melech when he gave to Goliath? What was that? David Melech was a yeshiva bacher. David Melech knew how to do that, and every stone is a letter. Sefer Yitzirah, Aish of Hashem's name, the 5 stones, the 4 letters of Hashem's name, and the Kutz Shal Yud. Boom! Right between the eyes. Goliath is dead. Kiddush Hashem. It's a Maaseh Eloki. So ideally, the person is able to be aware of this, that this is not stam. meaningless physical act. But with this simple act of pulling the needle into the shoe is Magalis or Hashem HaMistat, is Megala or Hashem HaMistat. I'll maybe just 1 second. I'll say maybe a Baal Shem Tov is a medrash now, and that's why the Baal Shem Tov brings this medrash of Chanuch Shenisala Dagdas Malach Matai, that somehow this person Chanuch was elevated to be a Malach. And the Baal Shem Tov was saying that to every single shoemaker, and to every single tailor, and to every single accountant, doctor, and lawyer, and soldier. He was saying this. That's what he was saying. That until then, it seemed that a shoemaker was just whatever, like, what are you going to do? Every single tefirah, every single stitch is a yichud of a Kodesh Baruch Hu in the Shechina. He said, Darish is a pasuk b'chol derech echad. The Ayub Bez Hashem will continue. We'll continue this next week.